it's an approach. And I think what people are looking for is that way to safely reveal to themselves what it is they want, what it is they feel. I think some people are afraid of what they might find. And we saw that people were able to share. And when you start sharing, and I think the thing that you facilitated in that program that was so marvelous was that people began to share. And you know that when you share, when you speak, when you teach, you start learning yourself. And you could tell with the emotions that came forward sometimes quite unexpectedly and very unexpectedly to the people that were doing the emoting. So,
yeah.
And I think that's just an incredible thing, because that's really what mindfulness is. It's
Welcome
mindfulness
to your next big project is you, a podcast based around the theme of time. Time to be able to press pause on life. Time to reevaluate what's important. Time to reminisce about where you've come from, what you've learned, and what you've accomplished. Time to revisit your goals, dreams, and vision. And time to remember the people in your life. That's it, my friends. If you've got time, fasten your seatbelt and listen in as we discuss opportunities for the next 5 to 25 years of your life. And remember, your next big project is you. So welcome to our podcast. Your next big project is you. And I am pleased today to welcome a very old friend, 3 decades plus, Steve Gresham, consultant, executive, investor in the wealth management industry. Steve left his past job, started the Gresham company up again when he was the executive vice president of Fidelity Investments, heading up the private client group. And when you've got 9 million families that you're overseeing and $1.6 trillion in assets, I would think that Steve is pretty qualified to have what I would refer to as perspective. So Steve, thank you for joining us today. It's always good to connect with you, my friend.
Very good to see you.
You know, the one thing I know about you is, as I just said, your unique perspective that you have for being in the wealth management industry for the last 40 years. Looking down from 40,000 feet, when I always talk about you, and I said, there's one person in our industry that really sees things from looking down, and he's got the experience, not just at Fidelity, but some of the other startups and things that you've been involved with over the years. What are the biggest challenges, Steve, that you're seeing right now for the next few years in the wealth management industry?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you. And the view from 40,000 feet usually obscures most of the really important issues. And so, as you and I both know, because we've done it, you work in the field as often as you can. It's been a challenge over the course of the past year and a half. But, that's where those trends begin to bubble up. And so when they get big, when they become visible from 40,000 feet, I think that's when we say, oh my goodness, that's really something here. But if you had your ear to the ground a long time ago, you would have known, as Leo, as you've known, the importance of the demographic that's been driving the financial advice industry. And I say the financial advice industry because I want to differentiate it away from wealth management, because wealth management has been brutalized over the years to really be kind of a happy talk around what's really an investment practice. And so if you're telling me that you're actually working across the full balance sheet, I'll give in that that's wealth management. But for the most part, virtually everybody that carries the shingle out there with wealth management is talking about investments. So back to 40,000 feet. In other words, if I can see you from 40,000 feet, you're a trend. And the one that I mentioned at the beginning is the one I think companies struggle with, because this demographic that has been rolling along, yes, it's the baby boomers. Sorry, don't roll your eyes. I mean, it's an important thing. This group of people has been redefining the economy ever since they were born. And so now that they're rolling off, not at 10,000 a day, but at 12,000 a day into retirement, they are taking the rest of the industry with them. And so my first issue that I think is the most alarming, most difficult to understand for most people from 40,000 feet is just how pervasive this trend is. It is changing all the service. It is taking a single person that you talk to as that primary account holder, and it's turning it into a 3-generation family with another 10 or 20 different people hanging around. So everything is different. they're not interested in accumulation unless they've got a really, really long timeline and a lot of money. So they're mostly trying to figure out how they're going to survive their longevity. And then they want to know who's going to be along the ride with them. And so now, and this is something you've pointed out in many addresses that you've made over the course of the past year, that an awful lot of advisors are actually racing the clients for the retirement exit. Well, that doesn't work. So you mean we spent all this time working together and now we get right up to the gates of retirement and you kind of like drop me off and say, see ya? Oh, that doesn't work, especially
when I need you most.
Yeah, especially when, my spouse partner may outlive me by several years, when my kids are going to need some help, with making decisions as they become more financially capable. So, we could start and end with the scale of the older people, but it's really something that is changing the entire industry. And all the COVID did was to light that flame, make that burn brighter by throwing gas on it.
Wow. Steve, I love the interpretation there of the wealth management versus financial advice. And if they can prove to you that they really are looking at the complete balance sheet, because as you said, so many people are just looking at that investment sleeve and are articulating that they provide a wealth management experience. I know you get it, you teach it, you're all over on top of this thing. One of the things that I, just building off of this is that this whole issue of the baby boomers, the 12,000, is that a day you said? 12,000 a day?
A day retiring. So that's twice the rate of people retiring over the rate of 2020.
So we're all getting older, much more of us. And I know so much of your work is focused these days on that challenge of dealing now with that aging population, health issues, wellness, mindfulness, all these things are coming into play. What are some of the bigger challenges that you're seeing there in terms of transforming the industry, advisors, everybody associated with trying to do more for those clients at the time when they're aging themselves, and some of the issues that you're seeing in attending to this aging population, Steve? What's going on from your perspective there?
Well, I think first you have to decide what part of the business you're in. And so if you're an advisor to households and to individuals, you do need to understand that you're no longer talking to a typically, older male alone, that in fact you're working now across potentially 3 different generations, including aging parents, including adult children. And you've got to decide whether or not you're really willing to work with all those people. That doesn't sound like a big deal. It's an enormous deal. It's an enormous deal from the perspective of, will the younger people listen to you in the same way? Do you need to have people on your team that are younger? Do you need to have a team, basically? We've been talking about teams for a long time, because if you're going to be in the wealth management business, you are not able to do all the work and have all the expertise and have all the relationship skills and all the connectivity and all the chemistry that you're going to need to deal with all those different kinds of people. It's a very complicated business. That's why you get paid for it. So, but that is the business that you will get paid for, the complicated business. The fact that we've been able to, as an industry, slide along in 12 and a half years of a bull market and still drag a management fee out of the clients, that's just been a really, really great opportunity, but it's gone. So think about what is actually going to be what you would pay somebody for in the future. That's where the clients are, because they want to understand, if beta is free and commissions are zero and interest rates are zero, where is it that I'm going to get the value? And so helping them to be able to maximize their net worth, that's really what wealth is, right? So it's going to be a function of not just the assets, but also minimizing the liabilities. And with interest rates as low as they are, it isn't possible to just stick clients into a safe place like we used to in the old days. I mean, you and I remember when there was 15% in a treasury bond. That ain't happening. And we're not seeing that again. And God forbid we do, because that would mean all kinds of trouble ahead. So the reality is you're looking to reduce liabilities. You're also having to shift your mindset to deal with someone who now is actually taking in the enormity of the challenge in front of them. The anxiety associated with rolling into retirement, perhaps not getting a regular paycheck anymore, being able to maintain liquidity, to be able to pay for expensive stuff that comes along, it's an entirely different ballgame. And so if we're not looking at that whole other side, what I'm going to refer to as the security stool, you got to have the three legs on that stool. Don't just look at the investments, but look over at this other side. If you do not have in place strategies for guaranteed income at some level, not for everything, but at least start with something. If you don't have guaranteed income, if you do not have liquidity protection, and if you are not talking about health and wealth, then I don't know how you stay in the business as a wealth manager.
And Steve, how prepared is the industry right now? I know you're got the megaphone out and you're trying to challenge people and you're talking about this message and things. I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, the broad industry, whether we're talking about a wirehouse firm, a regional firm, a private bank, someone from the insurance side, any other aspect, the RIA community, whatever, how prepared are we? Are we embracing this? Or are we just saying, hey, everything is fine. I'm still getting paid my fees. Everything is cool. I know what you're talking about makes sense. Is it going in one year and going out the other year? I mean, where are we in terms of the industry embracing all the stuff that you're talking about?
So it depends, right? So you and I have been very privileged over the years to work with some of the best advisors in the world, not just in North America, but in the world. And there are always people who are onto this long before you and I are. That's why I say, if I see it from 40,000 feet, it's because it's already all over the place down on the ground. So there are, of course, a significant number of advisors in some firms that are all over this stuff. So, and that's always been the case. A really, really good trust company has been working multi-generationally and working with both sides of the balance sheet since probably the beginning of time. And that's great. The difference, though, is for the people who are now trying to make that shift into their retirement and basically have the same three fears that they have had as long as we've been doing surveys in the last, certainly the last 12 years of the bull market, their three concerns: outliving their money, being able to afford their health care, and they don't like it if the market goes down. Every year that we do that survey, and Allianz does a great one, Allianz does that survey every year. It's the same three, and every year the percentages go up. So, I mean, what part of the memo is it? So it's someone is the subject of this survey. And it may not be the clients of the advisor that you and I are talking to today or tomorrow, but there's somebody's clients. And so somewhere out there, the vast majority of the clients are not getting the attention that they think they should have or that they feel like they need. And that's a subjective judgment. Now, to be fair to a lot of advisors, this could be a bit of a turn from where this client has been up until now. And an awful lot of clients tell us in research done by the Alliance for Lifetime Income that they're not sure that the advisors care about some of these topics, and they're afraid to bring them up. So, and that's on the clients. That's not the fault of the advisor. So I think it's always the same thing, right? Whenever there's something that's new, people aren't really sure. They're not really sure how to approach it. Clients don't want to be stupid. They don't want to appear unprepared. And so they get nervous, and so they don't ask. And then the advisors don't probe. And so you sort of get this kind of hiccup. It's kind of like guys over 40 going to the doctor, right? Oh, it'll go away. My natural immune system will take care of me. Or the bone sticking out of my skin will magically go back in, right? I mean, I'm being facetious, but not really. And I think that people are afraid, which is one of the reasons why advisors need to be able to probe appropriately, cautiously, but with purpose, to talk to the clients and have the confidence that they can help.
Probe sounds like a questioning strategy that usually attends to how much money do you have? When do you plan to retire? What type of risk are you willing to assume? But you're talking about probing and extending more around purpose and critical issues that are important to some baby boomers as they're thinking about the next 5 to 25 years of their life. Is that what Next Chapter is all about? I know you've been doing a lot of work in the branding of that and a lot of the interesting things that you've been doing. Is that where that theme and that branding comes into play? Caring the next 5 to 25 years, next chapters? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so Next Chapter was something that came together organically back at the beginning of the pandemic. We were headed there anyway, but again, as I said, the pandemic has really accelerated an awful lot of trends that were already underway. And so Craig Pfeiffer, who was the CEO of the Money Management Institute, more than 180 different companies. It's the biggest trade association in financial advice. And then we joined up with Gary Holland, Evan Simonoff, David Smith, the team at Financial Advisor. which represents 200,000 different advisors and other professionals in the industry. And we created a three-way ownership of a program that would say, let's get after these topics. Let's probe ourselves and find out what's really involved. If we want to build this race car called Retirement Solutions, then let's make sure we've got the best of the best working on each of the parts. You know, the folks at Porsche don't ask the guys who are building the brakes to then go off and spend a whole bunch of time building the taillights. It's entirely different capabilities in the industry, and they need to be blended because there's not enough humans to be able to do business the way we used to in the old days. A lot of hand-to-hand combat and all that and everything on paper. Now you've got to be able to avail yourself of digital capabilities just to make sure that you don't miss anything. I think one of the things that bothers me about the lack of pickup or lack of adoption of technology by a lot of advisors who say, well, you know, I don't need to do that, or I don't need to do that. The difficulty is that when you get to retirement, especially if you have lots of people in the family, if you don't have a way to be fabulously organized, the clients could end up missing a date that makes a really big deal of difference in their lives. And so I've watched people, so have you, Leo, that approach the Medicare decision at 64 with a lot of trepidation because it's complicated. And even really savvy financial people balk at that thing. They don't just walk in, look it up, and check a box. So now take that all the way down the learning curve to people who are not as comfortable. So when you have those kinds of issues out there, MRDs, 59.5 for taking money out for a 10% penalty in retirement plans. You've got a lot of statutory requirements that involve ages. And just because you've got now 20 people to keep track of in the family, it is no excuse whatsoever if you miss one of those dates. So, but that's something that you should say, that's totally ridiculously simple and everybody should do it. But it's not.
Yeah, it just requires that diligence, and the caring theme comes back into play. Steve, when I think about this, you and I have talked for years about the reasons why clients do business with advisors. They do business with people that they like. They do business with people that they trust. They do business with people that they value, right? And that caring is part of that trust. When you think of trust is built by people that have total confidence in three things usually that you possess. It comes down to your character, your integrity, and your abilities. And that caring is so much a part of your character, that what you're all about. You just cross the T's, dot the I's. You and I have talked about this. You've written about this. We talk about too many of the advisors have become proud and plateaued, right? They've gotten comfortable. And all of a sudden they're in a position, as we talked about earlier in this interview, where they can sort of kind of go off into the future and do what they want to do. And we need them more than ever right now. So as you're saying, they've got to either have the right teams, the right type of people thinking through these issues, because these clients, 65, whatever retirement age for some of them, 60, 70, whatever it is, boy, do they need these people now. And I remember when you first authored your book on New Advisor, the Advisor for Life, and I know you're working on the New Advisor, I believe, for Life. I know a lot of these principles were brought into play. Which of those are elevating now in your own mind of what's causing you to go back to put pen to paper or getting back to your keyboard to start drafting some more thoughts that are keeping you up at night about the New Advisors for Life today?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think the three things that really forced my hand to go back in and say, hey, wait a minute. And so the first one is this incredibly important role of the security and protection stool, this adjunct to the asset management work that so many advisors have done such a great job at with a lot of help from the markets. But this security side is something that requires a separate focus. And so it isn't an add-on. You know, here's the thing. This is a whole other side of the balance sheet for a reason. And again, you can't earn your way into a good spot because you have interest rates that are associated with low-risk investments the way we used to. And so that's the way you would have handled traditionally an awful lot of the risk associated with somebody, especially in retirement. Since you don't have that anymore, all the more reason to find a way to create a safe harbor or peace of mind for the clients, because that's where the trust is going to come from. That first, that they not only they know that you care, but they also know that you are competent. And so those
Yeah.
the combination of those things, as you've said over the years, really critical to engender trust. So the first thing is that the security aspects, peace of mind, must be included as part of the practice. I've become very much interested in looking at some capabilities lately, especially with credit. You know, as people go into retirement, they've got these big expenses. You know, I'm not retired, but I left my corporate job with the salary and all that. And, you know, I've got a couple of daughters that want to get married, and you've already been through a bunch of that. And on top of that, there may be a house, there may be an expense, there may be you know, a new roof, and all those things are going to come out of your savings and investments along the way. Well, there's tax consequences for that if you have any kind of gains, and so you have to think about that more carefully. And I'm impressed with the importance of that topic. Guaranteed income is also peace of mind. So you're used to getting a check in retirement. Well, who wouldn't want to go into retirement and just get a check? So don't tell me where it comes from, just get a check. Some of the wealthiest people that I know have set up these regular checks coming to them because they want to be able to count on it. So when you're managing a portfolio for somebody and we say, oh, well, the total return is there. Yeah, total return is not a check. Send me a check. And that is, again, even for very sophisticated people, I find that to be such an interesting oversight or even a disconnect between advisors and the clients. Because again, I know very wealthy people who are looking all the time for that check because that's really important. So there's this issue of credit, which is really liquidity, this issue of getting a check. And then this third part is the ability to talk about, candidly, longevity, health, and the impact of how some of that may change. And, you know, again, without, you know, putting you on the spot, you're a person who understands firsthand the randomness of health. And so in your family, you personally, we've all seen it. It is imminently predictable, except by person. These things will happen in a book that an advisor has. Not being prepared for each of those events is just unthinkable these days because you know that they are happening to people all the time. So why wouldn't they happen in your practice? And you need to have a protocol for each one of them. And everybody in the practice needs to understand that protocol. I was keynoting a meeting for top advisors the other day with a terrific company, and they're all over that because we talked about responsiveness. And they were concerned that their responsiveness was not that high. Well, responsiveness is a function of preparation. And so what would make a client feel better? And you and I both have had experiences where this has been so critical, tragic experiences. But if somebody knew about it, got to you and said, we got this, you know the difference in that and the way that makes people feel.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think of this in putting a bow around the advisors today and some of the things that you've been talking about here. We've had a lot of fun. I've been privileged to travel all over North America with you. We've gone to Europe together on assignments. We've gone to Asia together. You forced me to eat food that was alive in soup or whatever that was, someplace in Singapore. And when you think of the advisors, though, I mean, whether we're in, beautiful Buffalo here, or whether in Connecticut where you're at right now, or whether we're over in Spain, or whether in Singapore or Hong Kong, it doesn't matter. I mean, all these issues of advisors, I'm thinking when you wrap up all your travels over these last 40 years, you think about this, some of the challenges today when we wrap this up about dealing with the aging, dealing with the families, the intergenerational wealth, some of these issues, liquidity, balance sheets, this and that. What are some of the key challenges me now as an advisor at XYZ firm? You're looking at me and say, you better be on top of your game in 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 areas right now. You better be listening to me right now. What are you telling them, Steve?
So right now, we started with that issue of who are your clients. It's been, it's so trite to even talk about cloning your best clients or all that. I mean, anybody that's been at the advice game for long enough has acquired a following, and that following could describe what that person does. And advisors that I think are some of the very best people are the ones that constantly keep asking that question. So when you think about me as an advisor, what is it that I'm doing for you? What is it that I'm helping you with? And so that's where you'll reveal some of the gaps that are present. The thing I think is interesting right now for advisors is that they have to decide where they are in this game. So are you really in a position that you want to just roll off? And if you want to roll off, don't stand with one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat. That's not fair to the clients. It's not fair to the value that you've created in that practice. There's value that can be transitioned to other people. Most advisors understand the responsibility that they have, and they understand the need for being responsible for those clients and then also for their employees, their associates. So unlock that value. The best advisors I know right now, the top advisors, are spending most of their time transitioning their practice. So they are looking at being able to do job one, which is take care of the people. And I don't differentiate, by the way, between the employees and the clients. You are treating them as they are a working unit. So you're treating them at the same time with transparency. So they are working together. That's how you know, even at Fidelity, when it was enormous. And I know you would ask me, so, how do we know we'll be successful? Well, somebody from a phone site who was brand new asked the exact same question, and it's just as relevant. It's not a metric. My answer to the question was, we will know we're succeeding when you feel the difference in how easy it is for you to do a good job interacting with your client. When it is that easy, the friction will be out of the system. So it's a long answer to maybe the most important question. That's the first part of it. And then you start moving on. You need to have incredibly clear value propositions to each of the different kinds of clients that you've got. And I'm not talking about people who are aggressive or people who are conservative. I'm talking about what you do as a regular shtick to make sure that you're covering the people. Again, the idea is we have an asset management strategy for you. We have planning strategies for you. We have security protection, guaranteed income, and liquidity protection strategies for you. List all of that stuff. Show how they arrive on a timeline, because most people don't think spatially. They don't think about how this road is going to unfold before them. This is their first time retiring. They haven't done it before. It's brand new. Even if you are confident, you're going to have trepidations and anxieties along the way because some things will be different. So I don't think we've incorporated some of the things that are most important in some cases because they're not easy. And some of the big scale firms still struggle with the protocols, compliance, and legal issues associated with talking about health, with talking about taxes. Well, if you can't talk about health and you can't talk about taxes, I don't know what you're going to talk about, because that's like the most important things to everybody. If you can't talk about the impact of the market going down and you don't have a structure for being able to show people what would happen if it did, I don't know how you can talk to people who are on the terminal point of their retirement. They're not coming back, to work. There's no place for them. So you got to figure stuff out. Those are important issues. And again, we can go on, but I think the most important thing is to start with those clients. What do those people need? Not necessarily what do they want or what are they asking you about. You're the professional. You know what they need.
Yeah, no question about it. When you think of all the advisors that we've both been around and starting off in their careers, from rookies to some of the very successful, some of the world-class people we've been privileged to meet and to work with in our careers. In talking to a couple folks, they start off in thinking about survival, getting their career up and running. We go from survival, let's say, to some sense of security, starting to make a few bucks. Maybe we're getting married, maybe some kids are in the horizon, schools, whatever, things like this. Then we tend to achieve some levels of success, whether it's President's Club, Chairman's Club, whatever club that you want to call it. And then all of a sudden, it seems like in the elevation, next chapter, new advisors, there's this, what I'm going to call this pursuit of significance to do this. And I was, in a great spot watching you speak to 20 like-minded individuals a couple of years ago with Pinnacle Peak, the mountain overlooking us out in beautiful North Scottsdale in Arizona. And as you were talking to some of these people, I know they were riveted by a lot of these concepts you're talking about, but this whole issue of significance and more purpose and more meaning, this next chapter, maybe next big project as I talk about here, you observed that. You sat there as a participant for 3.5 days yourself with a lot of people throughout North America What were some of your observations as people were searching for that meaning and purpose, and is it related to significance and no regrets and abundance and perspective and gratitude and being their best and living your legacy? What were you observing yourself in preparation for your speech to close out that conference?
Well, I was very fortunate because, as I've always said, whether you're giving a presentation to pitch for some investment business, or if you are in a program, I either want to be first or last. So if I'm first, nobody had anybody to compare to. So it was great, then you're gone. And at the end, it's tough because especially if you got to follow somebody like you. So, and there are not too many people like you. What I watched over that period of time was people who had an idea that they were searching for. They were looking for something. They're looking for something that's inside them. There's a feeling that they have that they haven't found it. And what I think they had come to Arizona looking for was to see whether or not that would be revealed. And when I say revealed, I mean revealed to them. So if they really knew how to figure it out, they wouldn't necessarily have had to make the trip, right? But I think a lot of us start to look when we've had this benefit of these careers that have been remotely, even remotely successful. We're able to turn around for a minute and say, that was a great run. Now what? And the now what part begins to align you with the headset of the typical retiree who says, yeah, I had this great job. You know my dad, and he was a terrific pioneer in the medical profession. He had no plan for when he retired, as compared to my mother, who had a laundry list going long before she got there. So it's an approach. And I think what people are looking for is that way to safely reveal to themselves what it is they want, what it is they feel. I think some people are afraid of what they might find. And we saw that people were able to share. And when you start sharing, and I think the thing that you facilitated in that program that was so marvelous was that people began to share. And that when you share, when you speak, when you teach, you start learning yourself. And you could tell with the emotions that came forward sometimes quite unexpectedly and very unexpectedly to the people that were doing the emoting. So,
yeah.
And I think that's just an incredible thing because that's really what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is not the process of discovery. Mindfulness is the process of getting the crap out of the way so it can then pop up and you can see it.
Yeah. And there's so much to that statement, Steve, about just being present. I mean, it's really, really listening to other people. And I was happy to see folks like yourself coaching other folks and people coaching you along the process and being willing to be vulnerable. I mean, clients are vulnerable with their trusted financial advisors, right? They're partners to do this. They're looking and they're seeking for help. And my contention is that they are, like you described, some of these participants, they're searching still for the next 5 to 25 years. They are unsettled. They've reached a point, they were in the C-suite or they achieved some great things in their career. They acquired stock or they retired comfortably, but they're still searching. And what's happening, what I'm seeing in the industry as well, many of the advisors, the proud and plateaus, the world-class folks that we work with and stuff, they themselves are searching. And it's amazing when you look at this. And if we can get behind that unsettling feeling that when you talk about these things that clients need to have done, whether it's liquidity or that, crossing the T's, dotting the I's on those balance sheets, understanding the aging implications, health, wellness, integration, all the things that you're doing with some of the great tools and things like this that you are a part of these days. Man, there's so much. We can help these advisors who some of them are becoming unsettled themselves in their future, not in terms of what they've achieved, but in terms of what their next 5 to 25 years are going to be like by having them to understand themselves some of these issues they're contending with significance, their own legacies. Maybe it might help them to think and help their clients through caring more about their clients' futures beyond what's given them the great relationships they've had up to this point in time. Do you have any final thoughts on that, my friend?
I think if you put your finger right on the issue, this is about becoming a human being, a complete human being, the total advisor. The new advisor for life is a total advisor, someone who is actually able to portray their role in this mission. And so what I'm most concerned about is that advisors have not projected forward and described to the clients the role that they will have. So you asked, what would make me want to refresh or update that material? Because it's usually along the way, I'm just grabbing best practices from advisors based on what we know clients want, and then going to look for what advisors do instead of the other way around. And so what we find the clients looking for today is peace of mind. And the most important role for the advisor is delivering that peace of mind. But the definition has changed, because what now gives somebody peace of mind as a client, that has shifted. So what's your role going to be? And there's a generation of clients out there that have done really well, especially if they've invested on their own in the last 12 and a half years or so, as we're making this tape. They don't know the value of an advisor. They've not had one. They've been buying stuff online. They've been doing pretty well. They make money in the market. They buy stuff, it goes up, and they don't pay commissions. So they're the ones that have to be educated about the opportunity of using an advisor and what an advisor can do. This is probably the best prospecting opportunity for financial advisors that I've seen in 30 years. And I don't think I'm even remotely exaggerating that. I think I'm actually being conservative, because there's never been so much money. These are the most valuable clients in history. We met a lot of them 30 years ago. Newsflash, they got a boatload more dough now than they did then. And they've got all these other family members as well. This is a gift that could keep on giving forever, but you've got to be positioned for it. And an awful lot of this marketplace does not know the value of an advisor. And if you can't think of any other entry point, then are we getting the peace of mind that we want is one hell of a good place to start.
Yeah. And I'm going to end this, Steve. I keep thinking back. I don't know why, when we're talking about some of those attributes of advisors today, I guess I got to go back and watch a rerun of The Wizard of Oz is coming to my mind here, because we had a Tin Man, a Scarecrow, and a lion, right? But if we think about the similarities of thinking right, I needed a brain, right? Or I needed a heart, because we talk business at first, the meeting of the hearts, and then it becomes the meeting of the minds. And then we need to have the courage. And I believe the advisors need the emotional courage to talk to clients differently today, to say, wait a minute, time out. Yeah, we made you a lot of money. We've done everything. We did the risk parameters. We've done the asset allocation. Look at what we've done in your portfolio. How do you like me so far? There's so much more. Having the courage to say, we need to talk. There's some important issues with you and your family and your grandkids and other issues that we've got to attend to. Health issues, cognitive issues, whatever it might be. I've got to elevate my game to bring more value to the table. I can't think of any better person in this industry, my friend, that understands the next chapter in our industry, and for these advisors, the new advisor for life, than you, Steve. And I thank you for your time today, your friendship, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're helping to change the industry and having a phenomenal impact on the organizations, the advisors themselves, to make a true difference in the lives of their clients. And I thank you for that.
That's high praise. Right back at you, my friend.
Thank you very much.